panic averted. So I'm perhaps talking from the opposite end of the scale to Iberia, from a large institution, but actually there's probably more similarities to our approach to how we've gone about adopting IIIF than it would first appear. I mean, I'd love to be sat before you today talking about how we've been able to enact a carefully thought through, long-standing digital strategy that has led to mass adoption of IIIF and the provision of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of images via manifests. But actually, that's completely not the approach we've taken. We've been very piecemeal and very step by step in our approach. And really as a way of trying to understand IIIF ourselves. We're perhaps not the most digitally savvy organisation around, but also in an attempt to try and embed knowledge about IIIF and the possibilities within the organisation to get that higher level buy-in. So like many organisations, we had an existing online presentation of items from the Royal Collection. Kind of the example on screen is a screen grab from about 2017, 2018, which is just when we properly started to really think about how we might adopt IIIF. And it pulled, we built an interface into a Drupal website that pulled text and metadata from our collections management system and images from our digital asset management system and combined them online and presented them and allowed people to search them. And it's great. It was a means to an end, a way of getting at that point about 250,000 records online, and we had pathways to allow us, as we digitized, to continue expanding that number. But it presented us with a number of challenges. We were aware there's the image viewer particularly that we were using limited the number of images that we were able to present against an individual record. So the example here is on screen is from a Mughal manuscript from the Padhanama, which contains 33 beautiful miniature illustrations, but our viewer online was limited to 23 images, so we couldn't even show you all of the images from the object, never mind the associated text alongside it. Combined with that, it limited the size of images that we were able to present, but primarily for performance reasons. It's a similar reason that the number of images was limited, to allow us to serve up a record in a reasonable time. Those things were limited. So those were kind of long-standing challenges that we knew internally that we had and needed to be resolved. And then for a period of quite a few months, it felt that at every meeting I went to where I was asked, I was saying, oh, IIIF could help us, IIIF could help us. And then we were afforded an opportunity to investigate further. So our first challenge was the number of images that we presented, and the organisation embarked on a project to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the birth of Prince Albert, the consort of Queen Victoria, which necessitated the presentation of large amounts of archival material and volumes of photographs, but particularly focusing on how Albert had collected and arranged and stored. So it became important that we were able to present large numbers of images against individual records. We needed to be able to show you the entirety of the photograph album of what had been pasted next to each other. We needed to show you each page from the letter. But one of the themes that we wanted to pull out as part of this project was Albert's adoption of new technology, particularly photography. He organised a project to photograph every known work of art by Raphael, to document and allow the wider study of Raphael, who was then considered to be the kind of premier artist in the world. So that gave us a kind of opening to be able to say, well, actually, this is a really good opportunity for us to look at IIIF. If Albert had been alive today, no doubt he would have undertaken the Raphael project by using IIIF. So what we were able to introduce was kind of looking at the standard record page that we saw earlier. We added into the image carousel at the foot of the record a link to a IIIF image viewer, which would then allow us to serve up as many images as we wish to serve up for an individual object. We could present an entire album if we had the photography to allow us to present it. And what we rapidly noticed was that we tended only to have photographed the things and we hadn't photographed blanks. But still, it got us past that problem of a limit of 23 images per record. So it was a success in those terms. The approach that we took was kind of the bottom point is really, I think, the most important thing here, that we tweaked our existing methodology for presentation of information. We used IIIF as kind of a bolt-on alongside the ways that we already presented information. We already pulled metadata and images out of our existing systems rather than seeking at the start to immediately replace the way that we presented images, which meant that it was kind of limited to this one particular project area. If it didn't work, it didn't create us problems for the entire of our kind of digital infrastructure, and we could manage and learn in this one small space. So we adopted another instance of our digital asset management system, which is resource space. Critically, we have a network hosted version, which was incompatible with IIIF because of various security requirements within our internal networks. This is cloud-based. We chose to use the same digital asset management system because it was a system we were familiar with, a supplier who we had an existing relationship with, and potentially it offered us the chance at some point in the future to combine services in the cloud, which was something we were also thinking about. But crucially, resource space had, and they're produced by a company called Montala, had introduced the ability to create IIIF manifests from resources. Because it's kind of removed from our usual data flow structure, it's an entirely manual process of creation and data entry. There's absolutely no automated process of data transfer, so we had to manually build each manifest. But that meant that we had an element of security in that only things that we consciously chose to make available by IIIF were being made available by IIIF, which addressed one of the concerns around suddenly making absolutely everything available with no controls over it. And then images were delivered into our website by adding the manifest URL to a dummy resource in our main network DAM instance, which would present the IIIF images in a branded version of Universal Viewer integrated in the site. And this was a slight tweak to the way that we already present, for example, Vimeo videos when we have film footage of an object. So that worked really well. Just about the time that we finished that or launched that Albert project, we moved on to the next challenge, which was the size of images. The organization had been working on a project to catalog and publish the collection of George III's military maps for a number of years. And it had originally been a project that was intended to be published physically. As the kind of digital revolution happened, and then as our organization became aware of the digital revolution, it was realized that actually, because of the nature of these objects, the size of them, the level of detail that you need to see, digital was much better means of publishing and allowing people to study than a print publication would be. And indeed, now that we had the means of presenting within the Universal Viewer, we already had an infrastructure that would allow us to present in a much higher resolution than we had been planning to prior to 2019 and the launch of that project. So because we were able to reuse that same process, we were able to do exactly the same kind of thing. So on the object record as it's published on the website, we pull through a link to a IIIF viewer, you launch the viewer, and you are then able to zoom. This is the highest resolution image that we have. Zoom in to see details of individual gun positions or where troops might be, able to actually read the labels and the annotations that are added to each of the maps. So again, that met our need perfectly. So two kind of long-standing internal problems had been addressed, but because we'd used IIIF, and because it offers so many possibilities, almost I sometimes attend these things thinking there's almost an overwhelming level of possibilities for where you can go next and what you might be able to do. We now have all of those options open to us. We have the infrastructure in place that means that we can do more. So one of the next projects that we're involved in that's taking advantage of this is the Shakespeare in the Royal Collection project with King's College London. And this will be the first project that presents Royal Collection objects via IIIF manifests in a non-Royal Collection website. Increasingly, we're keen on being able to share our collections more broadly than our own estate. And this is kind of our trial to find out what are the limitations of our implementation of IIIF when it comes to sharing those resources more widely and allowing other people to work with them. So the individual object records within the Shakespeare and the Royal Collection website, the images are presented via IIIF manifests, hosted within our cloud version of our digital asset management system. And this project's going to be also using CogApp's stories tool. I think I've got 1, 2 few eyes in there to allow deeper interpretation and exploration of some of the topics within that collection. And that project launches on the 15th of July. So we'll have gone from kind of solving our immediate problems internally to hopefully beginning to understand the mechanism for how we might share our assets and resources more widely. And then where do we go beyond there? As I said, we don't currently have a clear roadmap for what we will do next. Almost certainly we will not do all of these things, or we will not do all of them together. But areas that I want us to be looking at in the immediate future are whether we should move towards having IIIF by default rather than opt-in. Should it be the main means that we are using to make our images particularly available to the public? And should we therefore be adopting something that's much more akin to Tom's more industrial model of manifest creation, automating the ingestion of metadata from our cataloging systems, for example? It's a slightly clunky user experience on our own website. Can we integrate the IIIF viewer more into the digital experience and improve, make more seamless a visitor's exploration of our resources? And can, if the King's model is successful and that works, can we open out our resources and metadata more widely for greater sharing and greater reuse beyond the Royal Collection sites? And finally, is that model of the stories or the exhibit tool of using IIIF resources for enhanced storytelling and interpretation, is that something that we can do more of? So as I say, we haven't got any answers for where we might go next, but what we have learned is kind of tackling things in bite-sized chunks at the level that we can manage them is the best way forward for us. So keep watching and we will keep developing.